They say one envelope can change everything. A love letter, a will, a confession, a secret someone prayed would stay buried. But the envelope Elise Morgan opened that evening wasn't just life-changing. It was life-rewriting, the kind that blows open the past, shatters the present, and drags every hidden truth into the light like it's been waiting years to breathe. It arrived without a return address. Just her name written in handwriting she hadn't seen since she was 16. Sharp, cold, controlled her father's handwriting. The man who'd told her she would never amount to anything. The man who kicked her out the night she got accepted into art school. The man who said in front of the whole family, "You are not my responsibility anymore." That was the last time she saw him, so when the envelope slid through her mail slot 10 years later, she froze. Not because she missed him, not because she loved him, but because she knew he only reached out when something was wrong. And damn, something was very, very wrong. Inside wasn't an apology, not a goodbye, not even the bare minimum of an explanation. It was proof, undeniable, time-stamped, legally documented proof that her family had stolen everything meant for her, her trust fund, her college inheritance, her future, money that could have saved her, money that could have changed her life, money she spent 10 years thinking she never had. Her hands shook, her throat tightened, because suddenly every struggle made sense. Every night she slept in her car, every job she worked just to survive, every dream that died before it even stood a chance. They didn't just forget her, they erased her. And this envelope? It wasn't closure. It was a match-a-fuse, a spark aimed straight at the dynasty that ruined her life. And Elise Morgan was done staying quiet. Before the envelope, before the truth detonated her entire world, Elise lived a life that looked quiet from the outside and impossible from the inside. She grew up in a house where money was never the problem, but love was, affection was, basic acknowledgement was. Her father, Richard Morgan, ran a real estate empire that practically printed cash. Her mother, Celeste, married into the empire and made sure everyone knew it. Her brother, Preston, was the golden child from the moment he could walk. Elise, she was the unexpected one, the inconvenience, the daughter no one planned for and no one quite knew what to do with. Elise used to joke that she was raised by silence, because silence was the only thing in the house that stayed consistent if she cried. She was too sensitive. If she spoke up, she was disrespectful. If she dreamed too big, she was delusional. By the time she was 14, she learned the easiest way to survive was to simply disappear, hide in her room, blend into hallways, become the shadow her family preferred her to be. The crazy thing is, she wasn't a bad kid. She wasn't rebellious or loud or ungrateful. She was talented, creative, smart in ways that didn't fit her father's blueprint. She loved art, loved sketching things the family never noticed. The chipped paint on the back gate, the way sunlight hit the marble staircase at 4 p.m., the sadness hidden behind her mother's perfect smile. At 16, she applied to an art academy without telling anyone. When the acceptance letter arrived, she ran downstairs, shaking with excitement. She expected shock, maybe confusion, maybe a rare moment of support. Instead, her father laughed, actually laughed, like she'd told the funniest joke in the world. An art school? Elise, stop embarrassing yourself. You're not built for anything serious. Her mother didn't defend her. Her brother rolled his eyes. And just like that, the tiny flame inside her flickered. But she didn't let it die. She saved what little money she had. She found scholarships. She planned quietly, carefully, because she knew if she waited for permission, she'd wait until she was old. Then came the night everything exploded, the night her father discovered the withdrawal she made to pay her enrollment deposit. Money she thought was hers, money her grandmother had supposedly left for her. She remembered the moment perfectly, the slam of his office door, the shaking of the walls, her father's voice, cold as ice and twice as sharp. "You think you can steal from me?" She didn't steal. It was hers. But he didn't care. He never cared. That night, he threw her out. No warning, no hesitation. Just rage and a pointed finger toward the door. Her mother stood beside him, silent, like always. Her brother watched with the smugness of someone who knew he'd never face consequences. Elise packed a backpack. Just a backpack, because that's all she was allowed to take. She slept in her car, worked night shifts, cleaned apartments, sold sketches on the sidewalk, and through it all, she thought the money was gone, lost, used, spent. She thought maybe she'd misunderstood what her grandmother left behind. Maybe she imagined the trust. Maybe it didn't exist at all. But she was wrong. It existed, and it was huge, and it was hers, until they stole it. And the proof, every signature, every forged line, every transfer, was inside the envelope that showed up 10 years later. Her grandmother never betrayed her. Her father did. Her mother did. Her brother did. And now Elise had the truth. Cold, undeniable, explosive. The kind of truth that destroys families and rebuilds the person they tried to break. Elise didn't open the envelope just once. She opened it again and again and again, like her brain couldn't accept what her eyes were seeing. The papers weren't vague. They weren't questionable. They were clear, brutal, cold as steel facts. Her father had transferred every dollar of the trust, the fund meant solely for her college, her life, her future, into an account under her brother's name. And the signature authorizing it? A shaky, desperate imitation of her own handwriting. So bad it was almost insulting. So sloppy it almost made her laugh. But she didn't laugh. She cried. Not loud, not dramatic. Just quietly, like someone mourning the version of themselves who believed maybe it wasn't so bad, because this was proof that it was that bad. Worse, actually, her father had stolen from her before he threw her out, meaning he never kicked her out for the withdrawal. He kicked her out because she discovered the truth too early. She was expelled from the family for knowing something she wasn't supposed to know, and she had lived 10 years thinking she failed them when really they feared her, feared what she knew, feared what she could expose. That night, Elise didn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table with a mug of cold coffee and a heart full of fire. She read every page of that envelope until the sun came up, until the truth settled into her bones so deeply she could never unknow it. And then she did something she hadn't done in years. She sketched, not a flower, not a landscape, not a still life. She drew her family, not how they looked, but how they were. Her father with a crown made of forged signatures, her mother with a smile stitched shut, her brother with hands full of money that wasn't his, and herself, the daughter erased in pencil, but now drawn in ink. By morning, she had a plan. Not revenge, not yet. Revenge is easy. Truth is harder. Truth is cleaner. Truth hits deeper. First, she contacted a lawyer, someone she trusted, a woman named Harper Reeves, who had a reputation for destroying wealthy fraud families like it was a sport. Harper listened to everything. examined every document, did the math. When she finally looked up, her expression shifted from professional concern to something colder. Elise, your grandmother left you $3.4 million before interest. The number knocked the breath out of her. 3.4 million. Money she could have used for school, for rent, for food, for survival. Money that would have changed everything. Money that would have saved her from a decade of struggling while her family lived comfortably on what was supposed to be hers. Elise covered her face with her hands. She didn't cry this time. She shook. Anger in the purest form, silent, hot, and steady. Harper continued, legally, this is catastrophic for them. Fraud, forgery, theft, intentional concealment. This is a criminal case if you want it to be. Elise lowered her hands slowly. Criminal. The word echoed in her ears like a bell. She thought of her father's voice. You're nothing. You're ungrateful. You'll never be successful. She thought of the years she worked 3 jobs just to stay afloat. The humiliation, the exhaustion, the loneliness. She thought of how easily they slept while she suffered, and a small, powerful sentence formed in her chest. They don't get to walk away. Harper nodded like she could hear it without Elise saying it. Good, the lawyer whispered. Then let's make them finally remember your name. That was the moment Elise Morgan stopped being the forgotten daughter. Stopped being the quiet one. Stopped being a shadow. That was the moment she stepped into the story she was always meant to tell, and she would make sure the world listened. Lena didn't open the envelope right away. She just held it, like it was breathing, like it was alive, like it could rewrite the part of her life everyone else had edited out. Her fingers trembled, the paper warm from her grip, and for a moment she felt 8 years old again, standing at the edge of a living room full of people who pretended she wasn't there. Back then, whenever she tried to speak, her mother's voice would glide over hers like a blade. Not now, Lena. Adults are talking. And she'd shrink, and silence would become her second language. But now things were different. Now she was no longer the invisible kid in the hallway. She was the woman whose name was suddenly trending in places her family always swore she'd never reach. She took a slow breath and slid her thumb under the seal. The glue cracked like a gunshot. Inside, a single sheet of paper, typed, cold, official. A letter from the family attorney. A letter that wasn't meant for her eyes. A letter that confirmed everything she had suspected, but hoped wasn't true. She blinked once, twice. The words felt unreal. Her aunt, her uncle, her mother. All 3 had signed off. All 3 had agreed. All 3 had taken what was legally hers. A college fund, a trust, a full financial future her father left behind for her before he died. Gone, redirected, signed away. The line that hit her hardest wasn't even a sentence. It was a signature. Her mother's, curved, elegant, confident, like she'd just purchased a pair of earrings. Not erased her daughter's life trajectory. Lena felt her throat close. Her whole life she had believed she was behind because she was slow or unlucky, or just not that smart, as her cousin always joked at family dinners. But it wasn't bad luck. It wasn't fate. It wasn't her. It was them. It was all of them. Suddenly the room felt smaller, the air heavier, her heartbeat louder. She walked to the window, holding the letter at her side, and whispered to herself the same words she'd been whispering for years, but this time with a different energy behind them. They didn't break me, they just taught me what I needed to escape. She folded the letter carefully, deliberately, and she smiled. because what her family didn't know, what they never cared to ask, was that Lena had already rewritten her future, not with their money, not with their approval, not with their name, but with a talent none of them realized she had: storytelling. She had taken her pain, her silence, her abandonment, and built a $10 million writing empire on it: books, speaking tours, film deals. She had taken the life they erased and made the world memorize her name. Now she had the paper proof of what they did, the proof the world would read in her next bestseller. Her fingers brushed the envelope one more time. "Thank you," she whispered, not to them, but to the moment she realized they'd never save her, because that was the day she saved herself. Lena didn't rush to confront them. She didn't call. She didn't text. She didn't send the letter back with a note that said, "I know what you did." No, she waited. She waited because silence was the weapon they used on her for years, and she wanted them to feel what silence felt like when it came from someone who finally held the power. And the day came faster than she expected. Her new book, the one she wrote in the quiet hours between midnight and dawn, hit shelves. It wasn't a revenge book. It wasn't a tell-all scandal. It wasn't even angry. It was honest. Painfully honest. It told the story of a girl who was raised by people who loved their reputation more than their own blood, who believed image mattered more than truth, who forgot she existed the moment she stopped benefiting them, and how that girl grew up and built a life so bright it forced every person who dimmed her light to squint. Within 24 hours, the book went viral. Within 72, it was the top nonfiction title in the country. Reviewers called it raw, fearless, devastating, and transformative. One headline said, "The daughter they tried to erase just became unforgettable." And somewhere in a quiet suburb, at a polished dining table she no longer sat at, Lena's family read those words. Her mother was the first to call. 5 missed calls, 3 voice messages, an apology wrapped in excuses, a plea wrapped in denial, a sudden discovery of how much she always loved her. But Lena didn't pick up. She didn't need to, because this was the moment she had been walking toward her entire life, the moment she didn't need validation, approval, or permission to exist. She already existed, strongly, publicly, fully, and for the first time ever, they were the ones standing outside, looking in. She read the messages once, just once, then deleted them. Not out of bitterness, but out of peace, because the lesson she had learned, the one she wanted the world to hear, the one she had carved into every page of her story, was simple. You don't get to choose the family you're born into, but you do get to choose the legacy you leave behind. And hers was no longer a secret. When Lena stepped onto that stage months later, invited to speak about resilience, truth, and the invisible children of silent families, she wasn't nervous. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. She was the woman whose words had cracked open conversations in living rooms, classrooms, boardrooms. Everywhere people hid their pain behind polite smiles. Flashlights flickered as the crowd settled. The host introduced her as the voice that made the world listen. And as Lena walked to the podium, her eyes scanned the front row. There were people who believed in her, people who saw her, people who didn't need her to shrink so they could stand taller, people who felt like family because they chose her and she chose them right back. She inhaled, slow, steady, full of a lifetime she fought to reclaim. Then she began. Some stories are whispered for years until one person finally speaks them out loud. Mine isn't just about pain. It's about proving that even the quietest person in the room has a voice powerful enough to rewrite the ending. The room erupted. Not because she was famous now, not because she had exposed anyone, not because her success forced her past into catch-up, but because everyone in that room saw themselves in her, saw the parts they hid, saw the parts they healed, saw the parts still hurting. And Lena realized something she never expected. Her story wasn't about the family who tried to erase her. It was about the world she rebuilt once she stopped waiting for them. She closed her speech with a truth that was once too big to say out loud. You are not responsible for the people who refused to love you. You are responsible for the person you become when you finally choose yourself. Standing ovation. Every single person on their feet, and somewhere far away, her family watched that clip go viral. Again uninvited, again unprepared, again realizing the simple reality. She no longer needed them, but the world needed her.